Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. Tonight is part 2 of 4, where we're going to be at the Utopia Winery again, and we'll be tasting another tasty wine from their vineyards. And we're going to have another music video like you saw last time with the wine bottle labels and all that. And Dan's going to teach us about another wine.
Yes. And did you say special guest?
I did not. We're going to have another one. So just wait.
This one might be a big surprise for some.
Yeah. It's fun. Anyway, Join us, okay?
All right, here we go.
Trying to get a message through the air to you. Get on my wavelength and I'll tell you which way to go to my hideaway.
Hi, everybody. We're back again with Dan from Utopia Vineyards. Hey, Dan, welcome to the group.
Howdy, Mel. Thanks.
Hey. Okay, we're all here. We're going to be tasting. What's the name of the wine we're going to be tasting today?
We're going to taste a 2017 Estate Pinot Noir from my estate vineyard here in Ribbon Ridge.
Very good. Well, maybe we should bring in our special guest before we actually get started. Don't you think maybe we should?
Absolutely.
Okay, everybody, let's see who it is.
The reveal.
Oh,
Hi.
Cy Curnin
Photo
from the
bomb.
Hey, what's up?
Old rock and roll habits die hard. Sorry.
That's no rock star.
You can never find a clean glass.
Yes, welcome Cy Curnin from the Fixx. Thanks for joining us.
Smell lovely to be here. No, thank you for the invitation to come and taste some lovely wine. It kind of gets me out of the house this Friday evening, which is a wonderful thing, even though I haven't left the front door.
That's it. All right. So, Dan, tell us a little bit about what we're smelling and tasting today.
All right. Well, so this is Willamette Valley Pinot from my estate vineyard. It's going to be, since 2017 vintage was a warmer than average year, we have very ripe fruit. But since I dry farm and we had some heat spikes in July and August, the vines tend to shut down when it gets too warm in order to conserve their moisture, which ends up preserving more of the acid that's natural in the grapes. And so you have this really nice balance between the fruit forwardness and then the structural element of the acid and the tannins in the grapes, because the other thing that you get when you have more light diffusion and more heat is you get thicker skins. And most of the good tannins in the finished wine come from the skins. So to me, this wine, it's a young wine, so it drinks like a young wine, meaning that it's still got a lot of zip to it. So that comes mainly from the acid and then the effect the acid has on the tannins. So the structural elements are very prevalent in this wine, but you also can taste the underlying fruit and the other secondary and tertiary flavors, the rose petals, a little bit of floral characteristic, kind of like a geranium kind of scent, and floral aroma to it as well. So I really like it. Over time, it's going to evolve into more earthy and spicy. There's a little bit of spice there now, but as the tannins resolve and the acid dissipates a bit, then those flavors will become more pronounced. But let's see what we got here.
Let's give it a try, everybody. Sounds good. This is very different from the Clone 777.
Wow.
Yeah. This one is mostly destemmed fruit, meaning that the stems were not included in the fermentation, whereas the Dijon 777 is 100% whole cluster, meaning all the stems were included in the fermentation, which gives it more of a spicy, earthy characteristic. This one's got some nice. It's got some nice underlying texture to it, and I get some of the. I'm starting to get some of the earthiness and some of the effects from the soil, some of the complexity from the soil in there, but still fruit forward. But very nice texture and volume on your palate. It's got a lot of intensity and depth, but it's still Pinot. It's still light on your palate.
Earthiness is really, isn't that one of the big differences in the Willamette Valley and say Napa? That's more y'all's thing there, or is that?
So we get more of the. Okay, so let me back up for a second. So in California, say Sonoma or Carnero, some of the cooler regions where Pinot Noir grows pretty well, mostly because of the marine influences that they have there, or the Central Coast where it's higher elevation, also close to the Pacific Ocean. That marine influence or that elevation gives cooler temperatures at night, which Pinot Noir likes, and that's why they plant it there. Here in Oregon, we have a true cool climate, meaning that we are north of the 45th parallel of latitude, which is halfway between the equator and the North Pole. So since we're north of that, we're considered a true cool climate, and we're a region 1 farming region, which is the coolest of the 5 different farming regions as classified by UC Davis. So with that cooler climate, we get less heat and less luminosity or light diffusion during the growing season. So our fruit is not going to be as ripe in an average year as it is in California, even when grown in those cooler spots with the marine influence that we just talked about. So because of that, we're going to have less alcohol. We're going to have a little bit less extraction on the fruit. So we're not going to be as jammy, and we're going to be lower alcohol. And so you're going to taste more of the true fruit characteristics. It's going to be lighter texture and lower alcohol. And those are, in general, those are the differences. And then if you go to the other extreme in Burgundy, it's going to be even lighter and even lower alcohol.
Okay, let me ask you a couple of geek questions, then we'll see if anybody else has questions. So I'm going to move myself in here just for a second for a couple of reasons, not because I like looking at myself. Okay, so you had in this one the Utopia Vineyard, and then Utopia is on the Cork. On the Clone 77, it wasn't on there, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that this is a real cork, and that one was a rubber cork. Yeah. Is that the case?
Synthetic.
Synthetic.
It's made from sugarcane polymers, okay, with a 0 carbon footprint. So let me just finish my last thought, and then I'll explain the difference on that. So talking about the different climates, the heat and the luminosity between California, Oregon, and Burgundy, as you go down the scale from California, you get less extraction and lower alcohol, which allows more of the secondary and tertiary and some of the more complex flavors as the wines age to show themselves better. Okay. California Pinots in general are just going to be more extracted and higher alcohol. Okay.
Gotcha.
So with regards to the cork, natural cork has been a good way to seal a wine bottle for many centuries, even, a millennia at least, probably. However, in 2020, we have better ways to seal a wine bottle. The problem with natural cork is because it's a biological entity, it can become contaminated, and that leads to corked wines. Corked wines come specifically from a compound in the haloanisole family called trichloroanisole, or TCA for short. And it gives a wine a moldy smell and taste. You wouldn't want to drink it. And I'm sure all of you have probably experienced it, whether you knew it or not. But now, if you think about it, you'll definitely notice it. And that comes from the cork, which got contaminated somewhere along the line. So nowadays we have screw cap, and we have synthetic corks, and we have glass stoppers, and we still have natural cork. And the net of it is that we've gotten better ways of sealing the bottles. The synthetic cork that I used on that 777, like I said, is made from sugar cane polymers with a 0 carbon footprint, and it's guaranteed to keep the wine sound for 25 years. And with natural cork, you can't guarantee that. No matter how well they try to sterilize it, it can still become contaminated and ruin your wine. And usually it's a wine that you've cellared for many years, and you have it for a special occasion. You're really looking forward to it, and then you take it out, and lo and behold, it's corked. So we try to get rid of that worry by going with these other products that are available to us now.
Gotcha. So let me show you one more thing, then I'm going to get out of this situation. This is I use this aerator deal for the wine. Is that something you recommend, or is that just
so wine is made in mostly an anaerobic environment, so meaning without air, of course. And so when it's bottled, there's gas injected into the top of the bottle to make a barrier between the surface of the wine and the air to slow down the oxidation process. And since it's made in mostly an anaerobic environment, it's all pent up in there. And then when you first open it up, you want to let it breathe. And that aerator, especially if it's a younger wine, will help it to breathe by feathering the wine into your glass or into a decanter. basically what it's doing is it's exposing more of the surface area of the wine to the air and helping it to open up faster. The other thing that will really open it up is temperature. So as the wine warms in your glass, it will release more of the esters and more of the chemical compounds that we smell and taste.
You bring up smell and taste, and in reading on your website about this particular wine, it talks about flavors of berries and cherries. And I'm wondering, is that because, because this could apply, I guess, to any wine. People, say, oh, this one tastes buttery or this one tastes citrusy or whatever. Is that a figment of our imagination, or is that because maybe cherry trees are grown near you?
Yeah, good question. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I can't even form my question properly, but
I think I get the gist of it. So there's a couple of different questions there, really, Mel. So one is, does the environment around the vineyard, such as maybe crops that were previously planted there, or eucalyptus trees that might be in the area, which is a very famous one in Napa, that gives the grapes from the Rutherford Bench in Central Napa a minty flavor because the powdery eucalyptol that's on the surface of the leaf blows with the wind and it sticks to the bloom on the grape and then ends up in the wine that way. That's the kind of a classic example, and that's a known chemical compound. And at a small amount of it, parts per billion, it can be pleasant, but if you get too much, then it's not so pleasant. Yeah. So, and then as far as the cherry and the berry and the fruit flavors, that in a good wine, it comes from the grapes itself. We're not adding those flavors, in other words. Okay. So the basic theory is that whatever is in the soil ends up in the grapes, which ends up in the wines. And with a high-end wine, what you're getting the grapes. You're not getting a bunch of additives or additions to the wine. That's done with less expensive wines in order to make them taste consistent. What you get with a high-end wine where the grapes are grown organic from an estate vineyard like mine, and everything is done by hand in small production lots, you're going to get a unique wine every year that's going to be a reflection of that growing season. And they can be different and be good, but we're not anything like a large production winery.
Excellent. All right, so let's see if our special guest Cy has any questions for us.
Well,
For Dan,
thanks,
really.
Dan, for that. That was very enlightening in lots of ways. Having had sort of a alternative lifestyle, I've been privy to be a lunchtime drinker, and one of my biggest banes of drinking California wines was that there was always way too much alcohol. So I was, for lunch, I was happy to hear that you were saying that Oregon wines tend to have slightly less alcohol, which is something I'm going to be exploring from now on. Having been in Europe, it wasn't always the alcohol that we were searching for in wine. It was always the complex flavors and the sort of life in the bottle. And I did find that with a lot of California wines, it was just so big, you just never got past the first glass. It just knocked you sideways.
Right.
And so it's nice to hear you talking about the alcohol not being the main feature, which is,
yes.
Unfortunately, some people seem to think that the higher the alcohol, the more, the better the wine, but it's complete fallacy.
Yeah, I think I like those comments. I think that, when we're younger, maybe, at least in my own experience, when I was younger and I grew up in California, I was drinking those bigger California wines. And I always thought I was getting more bang for my buck, so to speak, with those wines. And I think a lot of people feel that way when they first are introduced to Pinot Noir, because it is a lighter, medium-bodied wine versus a more full-bodied Cabernet or Bordeaux blend or Zinfandel or Carignan or whatever from those warmer regions. And when you're used to that, Pinot Noir tastes light to you, but as your palate evolves and it becomes more complex, you start to get the nuance of it. And as you get older, you kind of appreciate what you just said, which is the lower alcohol. and the versatility of the multiple, the complexity of Pinot Noir. You can have it with anything from fish to steak. I mean, it's not limited. When you're drinking those really tannic wines, you need like a ribeye or something to go with it. Otherwise, nothing is going to cut through those tannins.
Right. That's true. And for me, the other thing that I really appreciated about your description is the originality of the wine to the year that it's in. I often look at my life as I remember this tour 2017, for example. I can remember exactly where I was in July and August, just as this wine was growing. So it kind of brings out the poet in me. I always like to sort of find there was an original moment during that period that the music felt a certain way and the wine became a certain statement too of that year. It certainly,
yes.
And that leads me to the question is, I wonder what 2020 wine is going to taste like.
Yeah, good one. Well, first of all, let me second what you just said, because when I taste one of my wines, it brings back to me very vividly everything that happened in the vineyard that year and everything that happened in the winery and all of the hundreds of decisions that I made that went into that wine that I'm now tasting 2 or 3 years down the road. And it comes rushing back. So I can totally relate to what you said.
Yeah.
So 2020 was a year full of challenges. We started out great. We had big plans, and we were looking forward to the year. And then the virus came, of course, and that shut us down for more than 2 months. But the vines didn't know about the virus, so they just, we had bud break around the normal time, and everything just kept going and growing. And so we were fortunate. We were able to stay busy and not dwell on it too much, even though we were shut down. We're still working on my 2019s that were in the winery and getting some real farming going at the start of the growing season, which we're slaves to the sun at that point. Then things got reopened on Memorial Weekend here, and then June we had a dry spring up till then, and then in late spring in June, when we normally have our flowering, it got cold and wet, and that set us up for a poor fruit set and low yields for the year, and that's exactly what happened. But then the summer, things were warm and kind of normal temperatures and almost ideal from that point on. But once the fruit sets, that's it. You're not going to get more fruit. But the growing conditions were very good. And then in the beginning of September, just as we were gearing up for harvest, smoke filled the valley from some fires east of here in the Cascade Mountains and south of here. And we classify the smoke as young smoke and old smoke. Young smoke is when you're in close proximity to the fire, and it's the billowy kind that's very toxic and very harmful. And then old smoke is smoke that comes in several days after the fire efforts to quench the fire, and you get that kind of the hazy smoke. Well, that's what we got, and it was not harmful to our grapes, but it was harmful for the workers, and it made it hard to get crews for picking. But then after about 5 days, we got our wind shifted back to the onshore like it normally does, and we got some nice rain, and that really cleared everything out. So it was about 5 or 6 days where we had the hazy smoke. And so one of the big issues with smoke taint, which are specific chemical compounds that are found in wildfire smoke, is that it comes out during the fermentation. So you can actually, the fruit can look fine. You can wash the ash off and it can taste fine, and the must can taste fine prior to fermentation. But then when you ferment, those compounds are released into the wine, and now you've got the wine and it has smoke taint. And there is no way to really get it out except reverse osmosis filtering with some special resins and columns that go with that. I call that forensic winemaking, and we want to avoid that at all costs if we can. So we treat the must, even though I wasn't concerned about smoke taint in this vineyard because we had no ash and we didn't have any young smoke. I treated the must. So we washed the grapes and we dried them before we sorted and pressed them. And that seemed to work fine. We have very low yields this year, but the fruit quality ended up being exceptional. because with the small berries and the small clusters, we got a higher skin to juice ratio, which gives us more concentrated flavors in the finished wine. So that's kind of the long and short of what happened in 2020.
Wow, that'll be a journey back from wherever.
Yeah. I'm tasting the wines now. They're all in barrel at this point, and they're tasting great. I mean, there's no indication whatsoever of any problems with smoke taint or anything else. They're really lovely. There's just very little. I mean, my yields were literally down 40% from my lowest year previous to this year.
I'm curious. I want to know what some of our tasters here are actually tasting.
No, I taste some. Dan, thank you for doing this, by the way.
Oh, my pleasure.
Your wine is terrific.
Thank you.
I'm savoring it. It's got a really warm finish to it. I taste berries, but it's just got a really smooth, warm finish. And I wanted to piggyback on Sai's great question. Are you seeing it? I don't want this to be political at all, but we're having more and more, it seems like, situations that involve the climate and the globe, and that's got to make growing more challenging. Have you seen that be the case in the last few years, that it's becoming, trickier?
Yeah. So the short answer is yes. We do see the effects of climate change in farming already, even in a cool climate like this. There are a lot of things that are maybe more obvious with the warming climate. One is obviously higher temperatures, higher average or mean temperatures, which we're seeing, and then things like less humidity. Those are more of the kind of obvious signs that people probably know about. But the other things that are happening is the tropical zone is expanding with the warming planet, and so that brings with it more pests. And so things that we never had to worry about in Oregon because of our cool climate and because we get hard freezes during the winter, we don't have like Drosophila, and we don't have glassy winged sharpshooter here yet. But now they're in Oregon. They haven't made it this far north yet, but we can actually, we work with the USDA and the Oregon Department of Agriculture, and we they're tracking those things, and we know that they're coming. For example, right? And since I'm dry farm, as it gets warmer and the humidity continues to decrease, and we have more dry seasons, more droughts, that is, then I may be forced to begin to irrigate, which will be a challenge here because there's a real paucity of aquifers. So there's a whole bunch of writings on the wall that we can see. Now that's kind of near-term stuff that we're already seeing. Longer term, like another generation from now, say in 2040, the scientists are predicting that it will be too warm to plant Pinot Noir vines in the Willamette Valley.
That's amazing. So, yeah,
that's no good.
Well, it's not good, and well, I have one other question, and I'll yield the floor here, Dan. But this is a timely question because we're in a pandemic, and you open a great bottle of wine. If it were your choice, would you? I mean, and I think this goes without saying, this is happening anyway. But if you have a good bottle of wine, how long will it keep, or should you be incented to finish it that night? And I think
so you're talking about leftover wine, which is a foreign concept for me. However, yeah. So there's a lot of there's the little vacuums that you can get to pump the air out. And there are, there's preservative gas that you can buy, which is argon, which is the same thing we use in the winery, which is 4 times heavier than air, and it creates a barrier. It's almost like water between the air and the wine. It lays on the surface of the wine. All those things are, that's fine. But if you want to really preserve it, there's a simple way to do it. All you need to do is say, you and your wife are having dinner, for example, and you each want a glass with dinner, but you're not going to consume the other half of the bottle. So open the bottle, pour what you're going to consume, and immediately put the cork back in the bottle, and then put the bottle in the refrigerator. If you do that, it'll keep for 5 days.
That's great. Let me get you back on, Ken. All right. Yeah.
Thank
How
you,
about
Dan.
that, Ken? 5 days.
Perfect. That's
So
great advice.
with timing this wine here, this 2017, to maximize it, what would you say would be the perfect wait time before somebody opens?
So a good rule of thumb is 5 to 7 years from the vintage date for the wine to be fully integrated. Okay. That said, once it's fully integrated, it's going to remain at its peak for several years if it's stored properly. So the only caveat to any of that is that it must be stored properly. Properly means anywhere from 55 degrees to 70 degrees, and the temperature remains constant, and the humidity is always at least 50%. Okay. The cooler the constant temperature, the slower the wine will age, and the more greatness it will achieve in the bottle. So, in other words, you can store it at a constant temperature of 70, but it's going to age more rapidly than a constant temperature of 55, and it's not going to achieve the same complexity that it would if it aged more slowly.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's go with ladies first here. Lori, do you have any questions?
No, I just really wanted to say, Dan, I really appreciate the very laid back way that you talk about your wines and explain your wines, because my husband's a wineophile. I don't have to remember about vineyards or years because he does all that for me. I just tell him whether I like it or not. But we used to travel to California and get some of those bigger wines you were talking about with the tannins that you would eat with steak. And I just want to say I really like this. I will ask a question. As far as the nose, I really didn't notice it as much. And I've had my wine open for over an hour now because I started early. But I noticed the taste is much bigger than the nose I'm getting. And is that typical of a Pinot, or is that typical of this wine? It's your vineyard.
Yeah, no, not necessarily. Temperature will affect that, like we talked about earlier, letting the wine breathe and temperature, but it doesn't seem like in your case that those are the issues. Pinot Noir is considered an aromatic wine, and that's why we use the large bowl for the glass, because that exposes more of the surface area and it releases more of the aromatic compounds that we smell and taste. And so sometimes swirling your glass, what I like to do when I'm evaluating a wine for its aroma is hold it down in front of me, and then as I bring it up to my face, find out where it is that I actually begin to get the aromas from the glass. Is it all the way up here, or can I already smell it down here? And that is how I will address, the intensity, how I will evaluate the intensity of the aromas.
It's interesting because I just did that, and I actually did get a different aroma than what I had experienced previously. So
sometimes it helps to just stick your nose right in the glass and to have your mouth open when you're breathing in through your nose, which takes a little practice, but there is a special gland in the roof of your mouth that helps you to detect those flavors.
About it, Linda Fisher, you got any questions?
Well, Dan's answered a lot of them, but I live around the corner from a vineyard. On the East Coast. I live in Delaware, Lewis, Delaware, and I want to know, what's the difference between the East Coast and the West Coast grapes?
Our grapes are better.
I don't know if there is, or
no. It's climate. It's climate. Climate really dictates what we grow, what we plant, and what we grow, and yeah, and over there it's very humid, and the problem with that, there's heat, which is because wine grapes, they do better in a cooler climate. All wine grapes will achieve better complexity if they're grown in a cooler climate. Now, that said, there are certain varieties that can tolerate heat more because they come from warmer climates. But even those varieties will do better in a cooler climate. Viniferous grapes like a cooler climate. And then where you are, you have very high humidity, and that causes disease pressure. Okay, temperature and humidity are the two main vectors for powdery mildew. And so it makes it very hard, even in an average year, and there aren't, there's many that aren't average, that are worse than average, especially now with what, the climate issues that we just talked about. There's just a lot of disease pressure. It's hard to get clean fruit. And the bottom line is the best fruit makes the best wine, and we have a better climate for growing better fruit.
They do a great business, but I just, I knew it was really humid here, and I was thinking that it was really difficult to grow them.
Sometimes East Coast wineries will literally import their grapes from the West Coast for their better wines, and then they'll make some wines from different varieties that they grow there as well, which I commend them for. I mean, I think it's great that there are wineries there and that there are people that are willing to try to do it there. And sometimes it's even good, but they're at a disadvantage.
All right. Thank you,
one
Linda.
More question.
One more question. Okay, go ahead.
Bring them on.
And because I am a really silly person, I want to know, have you ever squashed grapes with your feet?
Yes, every year.
You do?
Yeah, in winemaking, that's called treading. And treading is the ancient way of breaking up the grapes during fermentation. So with my whole cluster lots, so there's what we call cap manipulation is during cold soak, which is, it's only done with things like Pinot Noir, which are lighter grapes, which is a pre-fermentation maceration or skin contact. And then there's punching down and pumping over, which are called pitage and remotage in French, okay? So during primary alcohol fermentation, when we're in open top stainless steel fermenters typically here, what happens is you're converting the sugar to alcohol. The yeast is, whether it's natural yeast on the grapes or in the environment, or if it's commercial yeast that was added to the wine, what its job is to convert the sugars that are natural in the grapes to the alcohol. But the byproducts of that conversion are heat and CO2 gas. And so what happens is the skins and the seeds and the other things that are the solids in the tank, the non-liquid portion, it gets pushed to the top and it forms what's called the cap. And that's why it's called cap management. That cap must be submerged down into the liquid in order to extract the phenolic compounds from the skins of the grapes, that's where they all live. Okay. And so we punch it down with a stainless steel device that had holes in it. So we literally press it down into the liquid portion to help break it up and to homogenize the temperatures and the SO2 that's in the tank to keep it clean, and to keep it moist, because if it dries up, then it attracts bacteria, which can be harmful and cause spoilage. And so when you have whole clusters, you have to imagine all the stems are in there with the grapes, and you can't punch it down. There's too much mass there. So instead of punching down, I get in the tank and I walk on the grapes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I have photos of that.
I love that. It's so cool.
Maybe you could go down there and visit sometime, Linda, and help him out.
I am.
I'm picturing an I Love Lucy episode right now.
All of my reserve Pinots are made that way. They're all 100% whole cluster, and I tread on those lots.
Awesome. All right, so we got George left. Let's see if I can. George, you need to unmute. There you go. You got any questions for him?
I do. I have many. I'll try to limit myself to a few. Going back to the Cork question, we're fighting a lot of tradition and a migration to better technology. I wonder, what is the best technology that we view today? Is it the synthetic cork? Or is it a screw cap? Should we be buying wine in bags?
Yeah.
Where the air can be managed more efficiently and the wine can keep probably for weeks without spoilage. Is that ideal? I mean, what is the ideal way to sell wine if we didn't have to fight tradition?
So It's mainly the American consumer that wants natural cork in their wine because they like that tradition and the history and the presentation, the ambiance that goes with the presentation of the cork. Because they're drinking a special bottle in a restaurant, they paid $100 or more for it, their anniversary or their birthday or some special occasion. It loses something in the American consumer's mind when the waiter comes out and screws the cap off, as opposed to removing the cork and going through the whole process. But to answer your question, screw cap is the best way to seal a bottle of wine. We know that now, and some of the concerns early on with fine wines was what would be, the effect on aging of the wine, for example. Well, we now have that data. We know that the wine ages similarly and in very high-end wine. So when you have a natural cork, you may not have ever done this, but if you look at the cork, even on the outside, you'll see little imperfections. If you take a sharp knife and you slice the cork open, you're going to see little chambers inside the cork. Those chambers are called lenticels, and they have air in them. And that air is slowly released into the bottle through the cork during the aging process. And that's what allows the wine to slowly oxidize and age in the bottle and develop more complex flavors over time. So the concern with screw cap was, well, if it's hermetically sealed, you're not going to get those small amounts of oxygen. How is that going to affect the aging of the wine? So what they've done is they've inserted membranes in the top of the cap on the inside that mimic the lenticels in screw cap. So we know now that we can age a wine similarly using a screw cap, and we don't have to worry about cork taint, and we don't have to worry about the cork becoming breached through temperature fluctuations or things like that, where cork is really good for sealing a wine bottle because it's impermeable. But what will happen if with temperature flux, that's why I talked about constant temperatures when we talked about aging the wine. If it fluctuates too much, the cork will expand and contract with the temperature. And eventually, the air's not going to go through the cork, but it's going to get in between the glass and the cork. And then once that is penetrated next to the glass, then the wine is going to become oxidized and it's going to turn to vinegar. Will form acetic acid in the bottle and make a decent salad dressing, but you're not going to want to drink it.
Right. What about the bag? What is the?
Well, I guess you could put it inside some type of pouch or something that was sealed, and that would be okay too. But typically, wine that comes in a box or a bag is not your high-end wine.
Yeah. But could it be though? Would it be any disadvantage to put a nice wine in a bag?
Only depending on what the bag was comprised of.
Yes.
If it's plastic, for example, and this is why we don't use synthetic corks that are made out of plastic anymore, because what has been discovered is that they leak plasticines into the wine. So glass is still probably the best thing with a screw cap. I think that's generally agreed upon that that's the best thing. But because American consumers want the tradition of the cork, especially American consumers, not just Americans, but especially Americans, about 85% in the latest surveys prefer natural cork. Then that's why I use the synthetic cork, which is worry-free in terms of cork taint, and it guarantees the soundness of the wine for 25 years. And you get the tradition of the cork. In fact, I'm surprised you even noticed, because most consumers wouldn't really notice.
I bet the Portuguese would prefer that you use real cork.
Well, there's another byproduct of the, we call them alternative closures, anything that isn't natural cork in the wine industry. And a byproduct of that surge in these alternatives is that it's forced the cork manufacturers to up their game and do better quality assurance. So we get fewer bad corks. And we also have simple tests that we can run in 24 hours to find out if there's any cork taint And if there is, we send the entire lot back, and then we get a new lot.
So how many times would you say in the wine, you make tons of wine, that you've had cork problems? Like you've had skunk bottles.
So for me, I wouldn't say it's a huge issue as a winemaker for my wines. I would say it's maybe 1% of my wines that maybe have a problem with cork taint from the cork manufacturer. But in my cellar, it's probably at least 5% on my collection.
Can I ask you, Dan, real quickly, from a cost standpoint, what's the cheapest way? Is it the screw cap?
No, the synthetic cork is the cheapest.
Is it really?
Yeah. It's about
plastic.
half the cost of a decent cork.
Okay.
Why am I thinking that
synthetic plastic or the sugarcane thing you were talking about?
Yeah, it's just the way it's manufactured. Making natural cork it's hard. You've got to strip the bark from it's labor intensive. Where with the synthetic stuff, it can be manufactured more easily, lower cost.
Was I lied to once? I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, that when some wineries started using these synthetic corks, I was told it's because actual cork was like becoming an endangered species or something.
So it's hard to know the real answer to that. What we're told is that it's done sustainably, quote unquote, air quotes, right? So when they make the cork, they harvest the bark from the tree, and it doesn't typically kill the tree. The tree remains alive, and it takes 9 years for the tree to regenerate that bark. And so I don't think there's any shortage of natural cork in the world. I'm not aware of any. I've never heard of any, and I have lots of natural cork suppliers calling on me every year to sell me their corks. So some of the trees inevitably do die, but it's mostly from old age or disease, not from the process of stripping the bark to make the cork.
Yeah. Okay. Thought so.
So I don't think it's a big issue.
I have another question. And this may be 365, the answer, but what is the most anxious time for you when it's really hard to sleep? When you're in the cycle of production, what is the scariest time?
I mean, the most intense time is definitely leading up to harvest and then harvest and crush, because the sheer amount of decisions that have to be made on the fly without really knowing the results for a couple of years, plus just the amount of work that has to get done. On a typical picking day, I'm up before the sun, and I'll work at least 20 hours that day before I get to rest at all. And that lasts for about a month or so. So that's pretty intense. And then, and I just finished getting my last lot from 2020 into barrel a week ago today. And we started picking here on September 29th, and we're now November 20th. So a week ago was the 13th. So from September 29th to November 13th, I got very little sleep. And all those decisions that I made are going to affect the wine when it finally is a finished product.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, good stuff. Well, Dan, we appreciate it again. This is a really fine wine. We're enjoying it very much. I can tell everybody's clapping. All right, everybody. What y'all think about that wine? It's pretty good stuff, I got to say. I enjoyed it very much. Yeah. Dan's an interesting cat. He's like a mad scientist or something,
Yeah,
like
but a lot saner than most.
That is true. So, all right. Well, good. So let me talk to you a little bit about your wine history, because I know not everybody that's watching and everybody that's actually participating is a big wine drinker. But Lori, why don't you tell us a little bit about yours? Are you a big wine fan?
I do. I really do like wine. I mean, my husband is the one who turned me on to it, and he is the wineophile. So like I said before, I don't have to think about year or region I pretty much drink what he gives me, and I tell him if I like it or not. We used to do a lot of traveling when we were younger to California wine country. So our family has traditions of having some of the heavier wines, the cabs, for Christmas dinner with roast beef, things like that, lamb chops. So, but we've branched out to a lot of different things. I primarily like red, but as I've gotten older too, because of like or he said it was the histamines, not the tannins that make you red. I tend to just chill with some whites once in a while as well. But I've always liked wine. It's always been a part of our life, our tradition. My husband has a wine cellar, although it's dwindling. But I do enjoy wine, especially with a meal.
The dwindling wine cellar, results of the pandemic, I got to say.
Yes.
All right, well, good stuff. All right, so Fisher, what about you? You a wine drinker?
Oh, I've been a wine drinker since I was 14. I started drinking Black Cat.
That's illegal.
Not MD20.
That's illegal.
Yeah, no. Well, it's me. I was 14 and I was drinking this Black Cat wine. And then, so somebody had said something about that they owned a beefsteak Charlie's at one point, but
Kevin Ellman.
So
Dad.
So I went to the one in DC because I'm from DC, and I used to drink all their wine when I was 15 and 16. They used to give it to anybody. It didn't matter. Yeah, that was bad. But then anyway, so let's fast forward, and I really don't know much about wine. I'm not a wine connoisseur, and but I do like good wine.
So you've been wine tasting before.
Wine.
You've been wine tasting
many.
Where have you been?
Yes.
And locally, or have you been to?
Well, locally, I've got one right around the corner, and I go there a lot.
Okay, so you do like their wine?
Not recently. Yeah, I do. I like it a lot.
Okay, all right.
And I don't know. I mean, you can just drive by and you see all the grapevines and everything. I mean, all the trees. But they're not trees. They are little tree things. I don't know that much about that, but it's really good wine. You can walk there, and so I do a lot of that. I go there a lot. They have every Sunday. They have a farmers market there. So
okay. So are you a red or white wine drinker? What's your favorite?
Well, I used to be red, and now I'm white.
All right. Very good. Good stuff.
I'm waiting for the Chardonnay.
Okay, that's coming up. Don't you worry about that. 1 second. All right, good deal. Mr. Ken, I know you drink wine because we've had some together.
We have. I'm known for walking around my house and sometimes my neighborhood with an IV bag attached to mine.
There's the bag that George was talking about. There it is. The best way.
And if they put wheels on those devices, life has gotten a lot easier. Yes, I do enjoy wine, and the pandemic has certainly not dissipated that love. No, I think wine for many of us was part of the dinner when we were having Thanksgiving or Easter as kids, and mom would pour you a little bit, and the idea was never the buzz. It was there's just I don't know. When I think about a really nice night, it's listening to music, it's sitting down with a bottle of wine and pouring it slowly and sipping it and enjoying. And it's part of a broader experience. It's not just the wine. Beer is something you might drink at a ballpark or with friends when you're out. But a wine is more of a celebratory and sippy, not really a word, thing. Where you it's part of something. The magical evenings in your life usually involve wine. So sure. Yes, and I'm not like you. I don't have the wine vocabulary I'd like to have, or Cy. I mean, Cy is off the charts with wine, but I do appreciate a good wine.
It's every wine bottle has a story. That's the way they say it. That's what I like. All right, well, good stuff. We'll come back and talk some more. All right, George, you got a wine story you want to tell?
Sure. I certainly didn't have it around the house when we were kids. But part of that.
Yeah.
I began drinking wine in graduate school. Actually, my director of my dissertation drank wine. He's an excellent piano player and a great economist. And he introduced me to good wine, I guess I would say. So I was a bit spoiled when I got into it. And I drank a lot of crap wine, probably still do on occasion, certainly on an airplane. But that's where I got interested in it. And I moved to Washington, D.C., and a little wine shop in Washington, Bell Wine Shop on M Street that had a Sunday wine tasting. And I would go down every Saturday for that. And my wife and I would go down too when she moved there with me. And so we learned a lot about wine there. And, had a great trip, many great trips to wine country in Napa Valley, some with Doug and his friends, and had some great times. But yeah, we spend money on wine every month.
Yeah, don't we all?
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah. And I enjoy a great bottle, and I enjoy not so great bottles, but I don't enjoy a bad bottle.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Not on purpose, but yeah, we do. We drink a lot.
All right, very good. So just real quick, everybody, I haven't, I've done a poor job, Mel. We've done a poor job introducing people. So I'm going to start from the bottom. We got Cy Curnin from the Fixx. We have Ken Owen from Indianapolis, Indiana, formerly of DePaul University, a big dog over there. We have Linda Fisher in Delaware. We have Lori Mimzik, who has been in Indianapolis, but is now in Arkansas and maybe even Ohio. I just always think she's Ohio for some reason. I don't know why. And then Dr. George Ford, who was his Todd connection, by the way, was the one of the speakers at Little Rock for the Music Education Symposium. So you may remember him from that. And then we got Cruiser Mel, as always. Everybody's laughing and talking. All right, so let's unmute. Let's get a conversation going. Ken had a question for you, Si. We'll start with him.
Yeah.
And then
have
some fun.
For being here, man.
Oh, yes.
Well, this is so cool. And
what's not to like?
So cool.
I love the Fixx, and I probably have like 6,000 CDs in my house, but Secret Separation is probably my favorite Fixx song. And I love many, many of them. So my question is, and you guys and Todd have played together and have a relationship, but when I first heard the song Fix Your Gaze in 1985 on the POV record, I thought of you. I don't know if you've ever put that together, but that almost seems like an homage to the Fixx. The guitar chord that Todd strikes, da da da. It's got that. It really seems like a Fixx song wannabe. And I don't
song.
That with any disparagement to anybody, but in 1985, you guys were ruling the roost, and Utopia was at the end of their deal with Passport, and it's a great song. But I hear a little bit of you in that.
Yeah, well, it's always nice to hear the sort of cross references you get from other musicians, like a tip in the hat. We do it too, to other musicians is like little secret nods here and there. It's like a Freemasons club. But I have spoken with Chasm a few times and Todd when we opened up for the guys.
Todd Healing Tour.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
fantastic.
We spent many a smoky evening talking about the roots of music, and I was kind
there on one of them actually.
Oh, so was I.
Yeah,
yes, we were there.
Yeah, it was great. And Todd was always a huge hero of mine when I was a kid growing up. I saw the light in your eyes, kind of put the light in my eyes, literally, as a kid. And then from there, I kind of wanted to hit that level of feeling in my music. So it was kind of a nice circle complete. But, getting back to the wine for me is, for me, it's always been a poetic thing, the time in a glass aspect of it. My mother was born in Bordeaux and her father was a wine banker. And so when I was a kid growing up, there were lots of wines flowing around, and my parents' cellar was an immense sort of we were losing less and less living space to accommodate more and more wine. And then there was a time where I was moving forward a lot in time now. I was sort of getting used to drinking a glass on stage because I felt it was kind of loosening me up into the eyes of the gods. But when the rest of the guys in the band started saying, "You're slurring,"
Oops. To back it off a little bit.
Yeah, I had to pull that back. So I've pulled it back a bit now. And so I must say I dip in a lot less than I used to, but my appreciation has grown. So it's definitely become quality over quantity these days. And the whole celebratory thing and cracking open a really fine bottle is what it's all about for me now.
Well, you lived in, I mean, you have a place. I don't know.
Yeah.
I imagine this chateau or castle that you had in France that you were renting for a while. So you had some of the finest wines in the world.
Yeah.
I got to thank you.
I still own the farm. It's a farm in the Loire Valley. And it's kind of my favorite wine from around there was a Bourgogne, which is not like a Burgundy. It's not like a Bordeaux. It's quite flinty, but it had a lot of interesting complexities that really were variant to the weather. So if you had a good summer, if it had been a good year, the wine was fantastic. If it was a bad year, the wine wasn't so good. And it's one of those areas that climatically was very up and down. So I enjoyed those wines, but the relationship I had went south, so I kind of left. The farm's still running. It's a big sort of bed and breakfast and self-sustaining.
Oh, nice.
Did you have a love for wine before you moved over to France?
I did, yeah. As I say, it was part of my family's roots.
So you actually would partake.
Yeah. Started off, it was this at 5 years old, this at 7, this at...
You beat Linda.
By the time we were 14, we were dipping into the cigars as well after dinner.
He's got you beat, Linda.
Seriously.
Yeah, it was good, but I don't think we ever got drunk. The only one time I remember was a big kind of Easter gathering of the family, and they all left to go in the other room, and I just stayed behind and drank all the dregs of everyone's glass. Ooh. And I slept it off under the table. So the rest of it, I kind of always had a respect for wine. As you said earlier, Ken, it was like beer is more sociable, and I felt comfortable drinking wine standing up for some reason. It's not a stand-up drink. It's something you sit down with. I don't know if that's the same for anyone else, but that's how I've always graded it. Wine is sitting down.
Sitting at the table with friends back in the day anyway. Yeah. So are you a red or white wine drink mainly?
I'm a red guy. Yeah. White wine's too much sugar in for me, and if you've had too much, it always seems to hurt a little bit more. Red wines is easier to control, and it always brings out the best in the food you're eating. Though there are some amazing white wines, like the Burgundy Courton Charlemagne is one of my favorites, and that's a real good one. But I've only drank it about 10 times in my life. And
is it high dollars or something?
It's very high.
Hard to get. Say it again.
It's very high.
No, what is it called?
It's called Courton Charlemagne. Courton Charlemagne.
Merci beaucoup.
Yeah. Great Burgundy.
Yeah.
It's probably made during the time of Charlemagne or something.
Yeah,
Who knows?
I love white Burgundy.
Yeah.
So, Sai, I got a question. During the pandemic, are you writing? Are you finding yourself creative, or are you like a lot of us and just kind of, getting through it?
Yeah, very much so. And I've been sort of mining the rich seam of human misery along with everyone else. And it has been a very creative time. I've been perceiving a kind of a reset that's maybe a global thing. I think we're all in touch with the idea of maybe we didn't need so much kinetic energy and movement in our lives. And maybe the things that we thought were very important to us are in short supply now, so they're not so important, or other things have grown. I know my relationship and my patience for the people in my household is really good. I've had to. So that's been a good thing.
It's been a game changer.
Yeah, cooking
no doubt.
Or we don't eat out.
Walking more. Cooking more.
Exactly, cooking more. Gaining more weight.
Yeah.
But very creative.
Exercise.
Yeah.
So Sai has I was noticing your latest CD is sold out on. I know you can get it on Spotify, but the physical copies are sold out.
Yeah. I only pressed up a few because I didn't realize, we weren't going out on the road, so I got short out. So now I've got another EP that I just pressed up, just playing this piano here.
Awesome.
Cut 4 songs, so I'm putting those out. just signed copies, little video I've made, and then I've got an album coming out just on vinyl, just over the hump of the year. That'll get me.
There you go.
A new Fixx album coming in late spring. So
really,
yeah.
Wow, it's been since 2012 was your last one, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've been working on it a while, but we just couldn't quite get the momentum to release it in the sort of peaks and valleys of touring. So, but now, just when we had it right, this pandemic came along. So we've
I got you. Yeah, I don't want to go fanboy on everything, but I think Beautiful Friction is a fantastic album.
Yeah,
the song "Beautiful Friction" is one of my favorite Fixx songs ever. It's just a really good album, and the lyrics is just really well done. So people that think you guys are just an '80s band, they're completely wrong. 2012, fantastic album. I'm sure the next one will be really good. I'm going to ask you a weird question that's music and wine related in a way. So I got to put me on the big screen here because I want you to take a look. I'm going to. So when Todd and Utopia toured, they had a deal called the Raw Tour, where they were, they had a Sphinx named Maurice. So I noticed on one of your albums, The Calm Animals, that you had a Sphinx. I was curious if what made y'all decide to put that on your album cover. And
that was the artist George Underwood, who was doing a lot of our covers, who's just done the latest album too.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you picture the spiritual aspect of Calm Animal, guarding the kind of treasure of humanity, or at the gates of the threshold between animal and man, the Sphinx is the perfect animal. I think the Egyptians had that. They were guarding, the kings on their journey into the next realm.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the Calm Animal was that the reset is trying to find your oneness with the planet rather than just becoming this human robot, living out of sync with everything around you. I think Calm Animals was very much our kind of climate awareness album.
Yeah.
So I just had that feeling. And so I think George picked up on that quite well when he put that together. And he's always quite trippy,
Yeah, well, some people think y'all were ahead of your time on that by doing that album, talking about that type of subject before it got to be the norm.
Yeah. Well, I guess, the guys in the band, we're pretty like-minded fellows, and we don't write love songs together, but we do talk about things in the world, and I, as being the lyricist, I kind of take these conversations we have when we're rehearsing and try and deliver a lyric that won't embarrass them all the next day.
Yeah.
And Ty, as an observer of the music industry, I would say that is one of those records that should have been bigger than it was. RCA mishandled that, and I'll just tell you, I think that's one that should be reverberating more than it is. If you don't have it, get it.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I agree. I think RCA kind of dropped the ball, and
yes,
I don't know, radio was just starting to change back then a little, and so they were trying to push it into one format and ignoring the rock aspect of the record.
Mm-hmm.
And then the crossover from rock to pop was a little one bridge too far to get over, because Driven Out won the rock charts, but I didn't get into the almighty pop chart, which we could care less about, but that's what we needed to do to sell the record.
Strong record.
Yeah,
really good.
Great.
Yeah. So, Cy, you were sitting at a piano, and earlier when we were testing your sound, you were playing a little bit. Were you planning on playing just a little something for us?
Well, I was just sitting here because it was the nicest view in the house. But
okay.
I don't know if you can hear. I had too much wine now. I'm babbling.
That's fine. We've all had too much wine.
I don't know if it sounds.
You're slurring your words.
Sounds good, right? I don't know how it sounds tonight.
It sounds fine.
I'm just goofing now. I'll stop there. I wasn't set up for playing.
Yeah, we got to have you back though, because we missed the Labor Day, but we'll do something sometime, hopefully.
Yeah, I'll set myself up for playing, and right now I'm just in. This French guy I was working with once, great orchestra arranger, was doing some strings on sol de minimum. And I just said, play something. And he said, I don't have anything in my hands right now. And I sort of was an interesting concept for a great pianist to not have anything in his hands. But it's, you almost have to get possessed to play something.
Well, I did not mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's not that. It's just that some people need music in front of them and they can play all day.
Usually Mel has the way of possessing people, so I'm surprised that.
Yeah. Now I just sort of need to like pull out a thread, start pulling on it.
We're here to talk about wine, drink wine, cruiser, Mel. George, I know you got some questions for George. Was a musician in college and loves the Fixx.
You mentioned you had a new Fixx album coming out. I think we talked a little bit about this in maybe St. Louis. But when you're young and you're making records and everybody's in the same room together in the studio and you're making records together, which I presume is the way you guys did it, in the 80s, and you got, extremely talented and very unique guys you play with Jamie and Rupert, who just brought something entirely new to keyboarding and guitar playing, I thought, in the 80s. That was just extremely unique. Not to mention the lyrics, which is interesting. We mentioned Secret Separation earlier, which I think is the only lyric that you didn't write.
That's right.
And the only song that had anything to do with relationships, romantic relationships.
Right.
But I wonder now how you guys can make music separate, which I suspect you do with the modern technology. You lay down a track, email it to your buddy or Dropbox it or whatever you do, and they add their parts and produce. How that creative process works in Fixx today versus how it worked for you when you were just really starting out.
Yeah, that's a good question, because we actually don't do that. We still get together. Obviously, this year it's been a little tricky. Everything that we're about to release, we had in the can last January. Last January was the last recording session, but we have a little studio in London called Space House that we rehearse at, we write in, and we record. And we do all of that together because we realize that we're each other's editors. So when somebody's coming up with a part, we either kind of go, yeah, or, so we kind of manage and fit each other into the sound in real time. It's not that we don't go away and try and improve on it, but when we're giving birth to the song, it has to be a group reaction. And I'll often write a little idea of a tune, but I don't go too far into the tempo or the dressing, because I'll just present it to them in my pajamas, the pajamas of the version of the song, and then they'll take it into their own thing. But we do that together always. But I do write with other people online, and it's a fun experience. But with this band, it just we kind of feel that that's not the experience. The experience is it's a love affair with each other's sounds. And like Jamie's chords will bring out another emotion from me or an idea from a word if the lyric is still formulating. We talk in visual terms when we're talking about sound, so that we talk in very sort of strange, oblique imagery whilst we're creating the sound, and you can't do that in isolation from each other. So that's how
what is the difference between your solo work and that work? I mean, is it
yeah, well,
it's comforting in some sense, or given your background with the guys, or how does that play out?
Yeah, my solo stuff is kind of more just me trying to keep my chops up, and as I've grown, as I've matured, I realized that there is another me that can work within the realms of the Fixx. In fact, what I do with my solo work actually improves what I do with my day job. The Fixx is always my day job, but sometimes I think some of the emotions that I put into a solo song are things that I wouldn't want to bother them with, or they're little journeys that I feel that I just want to go off on my own without anyone else's observations. And I've only really been doing recording solo stuff the last 20 years. I never thought about it before that. So it's just been a growth, I suppose. having spent more time away from them as life has taken me on journeys. We don't spend as much time together as we used to, but I still like to play music every day. And so, there's separation.
Excellent. I will say from a fan perspective, people appreciate the fact that y'all still get together and record the old-fashioned way, for lack of a better term, which is the better way. I think most of us would agree. So that's a positive thing. And also for bands, that started when you did, it's very rare to see them with so many original members, especially when they tour. You guys are rare in that regard. When you look at some of the bands from that generation, you might have one or two if you're lucky. And you guys have four. So
that's the luck of personalities. And we've been through divorces together, and it's like a marriage but better, because we don't sleep with each other, but we are. It's like brothers, but not. There's no competitive nature to that relationship. It's very supportive. There's no real pecking order. I'm the main writer, but I'm the baby in the band. So I've always looked up to them for sort of their maturity, especially in the early days, on how to handle situations. So they kind of molded me in my thinking, and I don't think there's much ego really in the group. We all have big egos, but not together.
You wouldn't make it this long if there was, because the other bands have those problems. I think that's the issue. Mel and I have done some stuff with some of these bands, and it's amazing some of the stuff they bicker about and the stories. It's just kind of crazy. But anyway, I digress. Does anybody else want to say something before you move on? Ken, you have something?
I have just it's probably the stupidest question ever, but let's say we all get to the other side of this COVID thing and everything is back to a semblance of normalcy. Do you guys have any plans to perform, say, an album show of your own, or just perform whatever you guys have come up with for this new album coming out next spring?
Yeah, good question. Actually, all of the above. Can't wait to get back out on the road.
You're going to do it big style?
Yeah, we already have a tour booked from starting 29th of April for 2 months. And if that doesn't pan out, the same tour is ghosted starting end of September.
Oh.
The new album is coming out, so we'll be doing that, and lots of other sort of rarities from other albums. I think as we've gotten older, we decided to break the show up into two halves. It serves us well to have an intermission. People get a reset. We get a reset. You get two starts. You get two ends, and you can tell a different story. It's like two halves of the sandwich, and the connection with the audience is the meat. Yeah. So,
I think once we all get back and get back to normal, I think it's going to be the biggest party we've ever seen.
Yeah,
I mean,
control.
Forget the millennium, all that stuff.
I mean, I feel bad for any of the clubs that are struggling that go under, and I'm a little worried that Live Nation will just come in and just chew up and make everything so corporate that some of the independent guys that really make playing live a fantastic experience still. Not that I'm not grateful for Live Nation, but there were those old mom and pop places that were always the most special gigs.
Yes.
So
Live Nation, though, will probably take their bigger acts, which will open up opportunities, hopefully, for the other venues to take the other acts, which is what we prefer, go see a band we love in a 1,000, 2,000 capacity theater versus, Live Nation taking it and, doing what they do and charging us a fortune. But anyway, Ken,
right,
you got
that's exactly right.
One more, and I'm going to shut up tonight because my phone keeps going down. I moved inside. So one final question. You guys obviously rose at the time of MTV, and benefited from that. But, the record company superstructure was very, very much a part of American music, and it drove everything that happened in the world. And now we're in a culture where you've got, 9-year-old kids making videos on YouTube, and everybody's a musician. And so what I struggle with in my mind is, which was better? I mean, I slag the music industry a lot because, as I said earlier, RCA mishandled a record of yours. I think, things fell through the cracks. It was an imperfect structure, but there was something about having a gatekeeper that was important, I think. And now we're in this kind of lone frontier thing where you can release a great song and, finding ears, finding an audience, especially in our demographic, is tricky. And so, which is better, Si? And I think that a lot of people, it's easy to take shots at the music industry, and I certainly do. But there was something magical about, the time that we all kind of came together for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know which is better, because I'm pretty sure that the most amazing song is being written by the most amazing musician that we'll never hear right at this moment. And so one of the things that I wonder and worry about is that we get our music from iTunes, for example. That money goes not to nurture young artists. When the record companies used to make big bucks on the big records, they would take the profits and sign baby bands and develop them. And they would develop them through 1, 2, 3 albums and let them find their feet and build an audience. Now the record companies look for an artist who's built his own social media platform with around X thousand likes, and then they'll work on that, because they'll go, if it works in that small world, we can make it bigger. So they're almost investing in what they think is surefire, but it's not really. The tricks to becoming famous have got nothing to do with the quality of the song half the time.
Well, that's true. I mean, because you can be like a reality star just because you have big bosoms and a big old rear end, and you can put out not you, Si, your bosoms are just fine, but you could put out a song and it could be a hit song for a minute, but that's all it is.
Friday.
Yeah. I mean, I think ever since video became more of the driving force for us, MTV was a game changer, but it was also a game changer for. There were a lot more female artists, or artists in general, that were more fashion conscious than those who wanted to just hide behind a screen and concentrate on the music. So it became a very visual, fashion-driven world, which is...
Yes, and in the meantime, Rolling Stone became a fashion magazine. But with that, I will shut up.
So, ladies, Lori and Linda, you have anything? I'll ask a personal question and get off the music and wine. So, unless you've got something you want to ask,
I got a flight case being
I was
delivered.
going to, but I forgot.
Okay, all right.
Hello.
So, can you hear us? Si, we hear you.
Wait. Can you hear me?
Hold on.
Wait,
he muted out.
I do have a question.
Hold on.
Si, you got to unmute yourself.
He's got to go somewhere. I heard him say.
Yeah, he's got a flight or something. Okay, all right. So,
Good.
is he gone? Did he disappear on us? Okay, that's all right. I wanted to find out why he moved to the United States.
Right.
Oh, there he is.
Oh.
Yeah. 2 seconds. Okay, 2 minutes, whatever. Okay, good. All right, good. So let's get us all back on here on the screen here somehow. All right. So what'd y'all think? Y'all having fun?
Yeah.
You having fun?
That was so much
Very
fun.
much.
Good.
That was cool.
That
Good
was
wine.
That was awesome.
So everybody like the wine? It sounds like.
I really did.
Yeah, it was good.
So did you guys, like I was asking Dan when he was here about the cherries and berries, which was specifically mentioned on the review of that wine.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys, the ones that actually know anything, do you smell or taste berries or cherries?
You know what?
Yeah.
Now I have a husband who does this and tells what he tastes, and it's just not my style.
For fun.
I like it or I don't like it, and I really liked it.
You're like Kevin Elman. That's what he says. Either it's a good wine if I like it. That's right. That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't. I've never been a big. I can't identify all that stuff with my nose.
Oak.
I can tell if I like it or not.
Although I can identify a corked wine.
Yes, they're very rare. I've had a few. It's very rare though. But it is interesting the whole cork now.
He meant when he said a corked wine meant that it would stink or taste bad.
Yeah,
right?
it tastes like vinegar. Yeah, too much air gets in it. It
tastes like moldy cork.
The alcohol is converted.
Yeah, you know what? I had a moldy cork once, and that smell. It was a taste smell thing.
Yeah.
And
He
it was
did.
weird to say, and it cost a lot of money. It was really big bucks too. It was in a place in
Sure.
DC, and it was like, what?
He did not like it when I called the cork rubber. I wanted to make sure that it was synthetic. I'm sorry. Nobody likes rubbers. I get it.
No,
So-
that was when you were in the fraternity, bro.
Whatever.
So,
So, Sai, tell me, I'm curious. You have this place in France, and you've been in these great places. What made you choose to decide to come on over here to the United States?
Love.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. And now it's clear. It's clear.
Yeah, I moved here for the biggest love of my life. So,
That's good.
better late than never.
Yeah.
that's
So-
perfect.
Yep.
Are you happy here in
Very,
California?
very, very happy. Came at a crazy time. I've been here full time about 5 years now, but I've actually applied for my citizenship too.
How
Good
hard
for
is that to
you.
get?
Wow.
Yeah.
I've had a green card since the mid 80s, but I figured this
Mhm.
time I'd go for the passport, and this because I wanted to vote and I can't.
Yeah. Oh, it's just too bad.
But I'll be voting in 24. I tell you.
Next time.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
So,
So you think how long will it take you to get it? You think you'll be able
well,
to get
it's a
that?
couple of months away now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, a couple of
So,
months. Should be
Did
pretty-
you get married?
Congratulations.
No, I didn't. I won't need to be getting married this time. I don't
Okay.
need the paper to
Yay.
show that I'm in love.
Yeah. So how does that work? You
Nice.
because you've been here a certain amount of time, or
Yeah. Well, I've had a green card since 1987, and I have lived here for huge long periods.
Mhm.
And then I went to France 2002 and then stayed there to 2012. But I moved here, and I go back. I'm there every few weeks anyway because I have a daughter there who's 18.
Oh, wow.
And then the guys are in London. I was there every 6 weeks. Right now, I'm like, well, I've got a ton of budget that I haven't spent this year on travel. So I'm looking to spend
We're
that.
not allowed over there,
That's
are you?
I'm,
Can you? I
well,
mean,
Especially if you're a citizen.
yeah, I can
Yeah.
go there. I
you can
there
go.
with passport, but I don't really want to take the risk right now, to be honest.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I've made it this far. I might as well just hold on for this. The vaccine is a great thing. I mean, it's just to witness what's happened. It's been the perfect storm, and no matter. I don't want to talk about politics either, but everything that's happened, if it's not about a reset right now and taking human consciousness out of this membrane of, I don't know where we've been or what we've been thinking, but we need to think a little bit more down the road. So that's, and I'm excited to be here for this tumultuous times. I mean, may you live in interesting times, the Chinese say. Well, boy, if this ain't interesting, I don't know what is.
Well,
Yeah.
we-
It's
who would
been
ever
unique.
think that we lived through this? That's crazy.
Yeah.
When I was working,
Ken, you trying to say something?
I researched the history of a football series, and we had a pandemic, as we know, in 1918. But I remember reading about that 10 years ago, thinking, how quaint. America had a pandemic and everything shut down. And, we thought in our lifetimes, we've seen so much technology and science and change. And, here we are. We're brought down by science, which is, pretty much in the end as it should be. But it really has caused a reset, I think, for a lot of people.
No question.
I just want to be able to hug you all. I am so tired of not hugging you all. I need
Let's try to
hugs.
cheers.
Yeah, I know. What
Yeah,
you-
everybody,
Cheers.
let's all cheers to each other.
Cheers. Try to anyway.
the
Cheers. 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 It's kind of complicated.
It is Facebook in a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
It is.
Miss
It's
everybody.
difficult, Linda.
I
It's
miss
very
music.
difficult.
You miss music,
I
though,
I
Shane?
miss live music. Live.
I know you do.
music. I miss.
Yeah.
I can't take it. That's what's really awful for me is not being able to go see music here in front of me. I can't take it anymore. I'm having a hard time.
Maybe the way to look at it is that we are all great. We're a bunch of grapes right here on this screen. And we've decided that we have to spend another year in the bottle before we really be worth drinking.
Before prime. That's right.
So when this thing is over, we'll come out a little bit more, developed and mature. And we'll
And
be
appreciative.
Yes.
Yeah,
Everybody's going to
definitely.
appreciate it. That's for sure. You would hope so anyway.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I maybe wishful
I
thinking.
hope not. Don't be negative. All right. So, all right, everybody. This has been fun. We'll see you on Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah. See me Sunday.
We're going to do the Pinot Blanc.
I look
I'll be
forward.
there.
Yeah.
From Utopia
Okay.
Winery.
Oh, you're going to do it again.
Yeah, there
I
you go.
enjoy-
See
enjoy
whoever
this is a
this
great
is
little
Chardonnay.
You guys are
Yeah.
really good fun to drink with.
Oh, good. We'll do it again.
Well, thank you.
Everybody have a good
I'm
weekend.
pulling up
Yes,
my copy
I'm-
of Calm
thank-
Animals in just a minute. I'm gonna
Peace
Right.
out.
Enjoy
There you
it.
go. Listen to that,
Thank
Ken.
you.
All right. Peace out.